What was the best moment you've seen where the real world hit a spoiled rich kid? I grew up with rich kids and still keep in touch with a few of them. One guy's father owned the most prestigious law firm in town. He said his life changed the moment he called his father from jail. The second time it happened, his father said, "Well, sorry to hear you got arrested. Good luck," then hung up. He said getting locked back into his cell was the singular moment that completely turned his life around. That's a good life lesson. Sounds like the dad cares but wants his son to actually grow up to be a good, successful person. Do you know if he actually turned his life around and got better from there? Yeah, that sounds sensible. Of course you'd help your kid out the first time. Getting arrested twice is a problem the kid needs to work out himself. My grandfather was the same way as an attorney. Father. A favorite family story is when my uncle calling him from a police station on a Friday night. He was in high school at the time and got caught drinking. My grandfather answered the phone and simply asked, "What did you do?" And my uncle responds, "Nothing." "Great. Tell them to let you go," hangs up the phone and goes back to sleep. Both my uncle and the police were stunned, but it being the weekend, my uncle ended up having get transferred to the county jail until Monday morning. The police from the jail called my grandfather on Monday morning and said, "You've got to pick the poor kid up." His time in jail wasn't particularly traumatic, but it taught him a pretty valuable lesson in how principled my grandfather was. Had he been honest and just admitted what he did, he wouldn't have been in that situation. That's hilarious. I knew this rich kid from high school that went off to college and partied every single night. His parents found out that he was failing basically all of his classes, so they secretly drove up early one Saturday morning with the spare set of keys to the car they had bought him and just drove off with the car. My parents did this to me in college, but it was because they found out I was living with my boyfriend and they didn't believe in sex before marriage. I thought my car had been stolen. I guess technically it was. Edit. Holy shit. I didn't expect anyone to care about this. I'll just respond to all the questions here. My name was on the title. My parents had bought the car outright when I turned 16. But I worked for my mom's business and had been foregoing a salary through the end of high school to pay for the car. I gave it back eventually. The resentment stayed and I moved several states away. A few months later, I came back to visit. Nearly died in an accident in the same car with the boyfriend they hated. He and I broke up. They were right about one thing. He sucked. My parents have since outgrown their religious weirdness. Yada yada. We're extremely close and they really love and accept the man I currently live with, who I am very much not married to. I knew a guy who had bought his own car but kept his spare keys with his parents. His dad decided he was going to take the car while my friend was living off campus, approximately 2 miles away, because he wouldn't leave school a week early for Christmas. I knew about this because the friend of mine had asked me to drive the car, so I was there while the police were explaining to his dad that it was in fact stealing the car if it was titled in his son's name. Somewhat distant relatives spent all of his university years and 20s partying hard with the approximately 100 to 120K allowance his rich company-owning father gave him each year. He'd travel the world each year, going to Bali, Thailand, Europe, every year Oktoberfest, just rampaging. At 32 or so he decided to settle in upscale ski resort area of the US and open a business with his hot gold digger fiancée. When he went to transfer his money to his US bank account, he noticed it only came to a few $1,000s. He angrily asked the bank worker why she hadn't transferred the entire amount, only to be told that that was the entire amount. His father had cut him off without saying anything and he just hadn't noticed. Absolute flatline. Rich guy in our college dorm thought he was untouchable cause his dad was some NFL player from the 90s and had not blown all his money yet. He would get freshman girls blackout drunk and then film himself having sex with them and then show all his buddies the next day or so. Well, one buddy was not as close as he thought and went to the raw, who then went to campus police and then real police. It was a fun night watching the parking lot fill up with the bored cops on duty that night and haul his ass out of the dorms while they went and gathered his evidence. What happened to him afterwards? Did he return to school? Never saw him after that night. This took place near the end of the week, Thursday or Friday, cause I remember going to class on Monday and his dorm was empty and being cleaned by the housekeeping staff. I have a similar story. I was raped my freshman year of college by a senior who slipped something in my drink. Well, I didn't go to the police until it was too late for evidence collection, because I was dumb and thought if I had peed I couldn't get a rape kit. I went to my college's Title X office. Dude got the fanciest lawyer and thought he was untouchable because his family donated and knew the chancellor. I worked my little tushy off to counter his BS claims and show them what he did to me. And he was expelled. He no longer has a fancy degree and can't go to one of the top law schools in the country that he was accepted into because now he has no undergrad degree and hurt other women. Edit. Thank you for all the love and support. It was a really rough time and didn't happen that long ago. So sometimes hearing the news, what shitty people say, is really soul-crushing. You all have lifted my spirits and made me feel so good about myself. Thank you. Lovely people. That one Instagram model who got caught on video talking shit to a security guard at VidCon. Not only did the guard stand his ground and not let him in, because he wasn't famous enough to be given a pass and too rich to just buy one, but once the internet saw the video, the guard ended up with more followers than the kid. You're irrelevant. Classmate in college failed his course. Partied for a year with daddy's money. Never studied. Ever. Thing is, inheriting his father's construction company. 2 quarries. A fleet of trucks and equipment. Depended on him manning up and passing the class. All he had to do was learn the basics of mechanical diagnostic and repair, and be set for life. He just needed to pass one class. Talk about wasted opportunities. One course, he failed 4 or 5 classes. All were needed to graduate. I had a roommate my freshman year of college that came from an incredibly rich oil family from the Middle East. I remember him having the hardest time adjusting to not having someone else prepare him food. I remember waking up one morning and going to the kitchen and seeing him try to eat eggs and toast he had just prepared himself. He asked me how I normally prepare fried eggs because his tasted really crunchy. Turns out he had just cracked the egg hole into the pan and prepared it shell and all. I couldn't stop laughing but felt really bad for the dude. At least he tried. True, he was a good dude. Was an interesting semester helping him learn how to live, providing for himself. That sounds like the plot of a sitcom that I would actually like to watch. Edit. I got silver. Cool. What does that mean? Friends, Rachel and Monica pretty much. Administration and faculty at a university refused a substantial offer of endowment money from a couple that wanted their son enrolled as an art major. Their son couldn't meet the minimum scholastic entrance requirements and he had little aptitude for art. Still, with their millions, he thought money would buy his way to an easy degree as an art major. He was dumbfounded to receive a notice of non-admittance. Prize in German. Someone is gonna pay for this down the road. I knew a guy in high school who bragged that he didn't have to pay attention in school because, get this, his grandfather was a vice president of the corporation that supplied the cardboard for cereal boxes for General Mills. Real gravy train. Yeah, no. Last I checked, since deleted Facebook, he was still working at Best Buy 5 years after high school. Same job he had in high school. I don't think my father, the inventor of toaster strudel would be too pleased with this. The duck might swim in the lake, but my daddy owns the lake. My best moment was when I got hired by a pair of Woodside CA parents to transition their horrible 18-year-old into the realities of real life. Something that evaded for both of them. Monsieur, my first action was to take away his platinum limitless credit cards. He threw a tantrum that lasted several days. Where am I going to get money? Get a job. My parents will fire you. They didn't. When he realized that boundaries and budgets had been set in stone, and that he not only had to pay the bills, the rent, but taxes too, he headed straight to college to wait out the next 4 years. He is still a little jerk, but at least he has a job and an education now. How does one get into this line of work? I was the nanny while working through my PhD, so I came to it indirectly. There is a whole workforce of folks who do this. Word of mouth and next door. Probably on the BBC yesterday when Prince Andrew got the shit kicked out of him for an hour about his association with Epstein. Epstein's the guy who didn't kill himself, right? Ooh, I know this one. When did you last speak with Ghislaine? Quote, summer, late spring, early spring. When did Epstein get arrested? Quote, July. Yes, before July. Quote, where were you on the 10th of March 2001? Quote, Pizza Express Woking. Lol. He said he remembered the visit weirdly distinctly because he has only been there a couple of times. I've only been to Disneyland once in my life, when I was in my late 20s. And I can't tell you the exact date I was there off the top of my head without looking up the pictures. Him being able to recall this weirdly distinctly just screams that he's lying. One of my college roommates told his parents the trip we were planning, that they were paying for, was $400 more expensive than it was so he could buy a really nice bong. In addition, they basically paid for everything he wanted. He had their credit card and ordered food on it at least once daily. He also would make $50 purchases off the card pretty regularly. Long story short, they found out he lied about the cost of the trip. For whatever reason, they still paid and let him go. But after the trip, he could not use their card anymore. This dude acted like he lived the hardest life of all time afterwards. But eventually sucked it up. He actually acts way less entitled now. It ended up having a lasting positive effect for him, even though he wouldn't admit it. Thank you for watching.